Hi everyone, this is my take on the Gundam custom domain base for the hangar base. So I started off by cleaning the kit with some IPA and base priming it in black. Then I followed everything up with a AnchoreT paint black gray numbers 14th, as you can see here, and then let it sit to dry for a couple of minutes. Follow up with a lighter blue gray from AnchoreT number 19. So this is me repeating the steps over and over again for all the platform itself for the base, and followed by the same color scheme, a black super black base for the wall. Super black is number 38 from AnchoreT here. So everything is painted with a 0.5 needle airbrush at a 25 psi itself. The paint ratio for AnchoreT is actually 1 part paint, 3 part thinner. So this is how it looks with 4 CG base for a HG or RG kit. If you're doing it for MG or PG, you need at least 2 levels. So please plan your purchase accordingly. So here I'm actually assembling or building all the remaining accessories that comes with the CG base set. Each hangar bay would come with their own accessory. There are 8 sets of accessories to choose from, and this is me building one of it, which is I believe set F. So there is containers and also the trailers in set F. The other various kind of accessories that you'll see throughout this video would be that comes with this CG base is some of them are the claws that came with the kit, the cranes, there are also hoists, there are also other construction related items. So this is me speed building through everything for the 8 accessories. Of course, you may plan to purchase a certain extra kit. You don't have to get all the 8 different one. You can repurchase some of the same one just because you like the accessories. It's compatible on all the base. Then of course I followed by priming all of them and leave it to dry for a few days. And right after letting the paint to dry for a few days, I follow up with brushing my all the accessories actually with the Jumpwind Neo number 18 orange yellow. Everything was painted with my airbrush. It's a 0.5 needle since I don't plan to do any detail painting here. What you see right now is actually a crane from a different set. It's no longer from the CG brand. You might need to purchase this separately because you won't be able to find this crane from the CG brand, but it's the same scale. It's actually from the brand VT. After painting everything, it's again just pretty much letting it dry overnight before I start continuing on to the next stage, which is the detail painting. So I prepared a wet palette and lay out all my Vallejo metallic colors, which is silver, bronze, and black, which I would commonly use, and some gunmetal to paint up some of the details of the cranes and other accessories to reveal some of the inner workings of the metallic parts. I later on added some pastels, which you see here on the screen is black and brown to increase the weathering effect. I also use Tamiya panel line to help give that weather effect. So here is the difference between having it weathered and non-weathered. You just pretty much let the Tamiya panel line to dry and wipe it off with a Q-tip soaked in enamel thinner. What I recommend here is actually you don't really need to change your Q-tip if you're going for a weathered look because you generally want it to be dirty. So instead of actually changing it every single time you do a weathering, you just wipe it continuously using the same one. So here it's it, all the accessories that came with 8 sets, and I pretty much lay out as a demonstration piece how it would look weathered and detail painted. Moving on, I'm working on all the detail painting on the platforms and the panels on the back. So what you'll see here is me, instead of masking every single piece, I made a template, masking template to just pretty much airbrush everything in. So it saves time on working on repeated sets over and over again. So this is how it looks after painting it with a masking template. Same goes to the floor panel. So I created a masking template using the first one by laying down extra masking tape over the side and peeling out carefully, and just reusing the same template for all the runways that you see here, repeating the same process over and over again. I even use paper as the side support so it doesn't stick too much on the platform. So that's how it works from my end. It's totally up to you how you guys would like to do it. You guys don't have to worry that the template is imperfect, because right after painting you can always use a paper to actually mask out certain area that you have actually oversprayed, and do the necessary cleanup. So I again used the black from AnchoreT to actually touch up all the corners that was actually oversprayed, and this is how it looks. As you probably know by now, not everything could be painted using an airbrush, so I do the detail painting using a brush itself. Colors are actually the same. Vallejo's metallic bronze and silver. To get this unique rose gold color, I actually use Morrison's metallic red, mixing it with a little bronze and also silver. So here is actually a little bit more than 8 sets already. I actually purchased 2 additional sets, coming to a total of 10 sets because I need 2 floors for everything. And more stocks arrived. So this is what I told you, the crane actually have to be purchased separately. It doesn't come in a set, as well as some staircase. So here is me actually speed building the crane that I mentioned earlier. Probably the timeline is not correct, and also the staircase for the kit. So here is me speed building a staircase for the domain base. Everything took maybe an hour, and after everything's cleaned up, here it is how it looks for the staircase. And a few weeks gone by, more mails came in. I received a unicorn chain base, or in this case is called the VT Gundam cage, VT131 to be exact, the model number. So I pretty much speed build it. Experience from this kit, it's fine. There's no real issue with the fitment. As per usual, given that it's a Chinese knockoff, it's never perfect. You just need to know how to do the necessary changes to make sure everything's work fine. Detail on it is still okay, and I pretty much primed it, and I haven't decided what color or what I want to do with it. So here is everything loaded up onto the chain base first. Of course, with that, with the 6 floor panel, initially I thought it was too small to actually fit everything. I added 2 more, and knowing that I have more mails coming in for this domain set, I needed more space for all the additional accessories that was coming. And this is just me pretty much trying to find what I would like it to be for the domain base. Haven't really have a full solid plan on how it would actually look in the final during this stage. And of course, fiddling with the accessories too much, parts actually break. To fix it, I actually just pinned it with a 1mm brass rod and connected it with the additional runners that was left over from another kit. So while waiting for everything, I was just pretty much testing out decals that actually came until more mails came in. This time is the Gundam system base from Bandai, of course, this time. This is me pretty much speed building it. It's considered relatively easy because it only came with 5 runners. It's a very simple build with very minimal details on it. Would I recommend it? Yes, I would. If you have, if it's actually a MG or a HG, although it says it is made for a HG. So as you can see here, I don't have that many MG kits for samples, so I use a Nemesis Prime to actually fit on the system base and a Supernova heavy arm into the cage. Optimus Prime, also called Nemesis Prime, will not fit into the cage because it's too big on the chest. This part I tried to experiment with a different color scheme for the base, and turns out it wasn't to my liking. These are all the AnchoreT paints that I bought, and I used them for the system base painting. And this is me pretty much speed painting everything on the system base, again using the AnchoreT paint thin 1:3 ratio with my ProconBoy this time on 20 psi if I'm not mistaken. And after base painting everything, I pretty much just mask everything. So there are parts that I would like to leave silver. I already pre-painted them and then continued to mask. I then base everything in Reventon gray. This is Reventon gray from AnchoreT again. I personally love it a lot. It looks a lot like gunmetal, but it has a slight green tint over it. And next, of course, I was painting the details or the inner parts of the system base, and adding some shadows to the side and letting it to dry. So after leaving it to dry for a couple of minutes, I pretty much peel all the masking out and reassemble the whole system base, of course, so that I can prepare for the next step, which is for weathering. So this is just to actually to see how it would look. I didn't know how it looks actually and whether I liked it. So next stage is actually weathering the panels or the floors and everything for the stairs, and again wiping it down with sponge and enamel cleaners to give that really weathered look for all of them. At this stage it's not final yet. I pretty much still readjusted the color scheme, but to actually get a sense of actually how it would look if it's slightly weathered. Of course I added more details because it was too plain on the side, so I painted some silver in some dark gray or black gray from AnchoreT. Silver itself is actually painted using Jumpwind's extra metal line, and it's actually aluminium number 03. I personally recommend them because they're extra durable, and also the metal flakes are perfectly fine. I can actually flow it through a 0.2 needle with ease. And again, masking all the necessary parts that I would like to have it on a darker shade, because after weathering I still feel that it's not good enough. So I pretty much mask everything on the inner side using a technique of large panel and then filling it the side with smaller masking tapes, pre-cut masking tape. So it is actually much easier that way. And again, taking my time to actually remove all the masking from the from the painted kit. Again, remind everyone, just make sure you don't leave your masking too long after painted, or you might have a cured paint and removing sometimes may cause peeling. This is the final look that I went with, and I'm pretty happy with how the system base actually really look right now. Like I said, I repurchased more sets, and this is the containers, and I quickly airbrushed them and dabbed them off with IPA to give this really weathered look. And because I feel that shadows wasn't pronounced enough, I used Mr. Weathering to weather the whole thing and create this slightly shadowed effect. And I love it so much, I just pretty much replicate it through for all the panels on the back and on the wall here. And this is how I clean off Mr. Weathering is just using enamel thinner and just wiping it off with sponge and a paper towel, so to make sure that you don't soak or pull any enamel thinner on it, because as you know, it causes the plastic to be brittle using too much enamel on it. And since I'm already working on a platform, I decided to add the decals on it to see how it would look. And after deciding how I would want the look to be, I'm quickly just set all the decals down and just make sure that everything's in place. Decals are also bought separately. I'm not too sure about other vendors if they actually have it sold together, but for me, I actually have to purchase it separately. And like I mentioned earlier, I actually pre-ordered another 2 more, making a total of 12 domain base that I actually bought for this kit or this setup. So this is how it looks. I also pretty much painted some of the Gundam cage, so this is how it looks like. Then moving on to wiring of the LEDs for the system base. So after wiring everything, I tested out all the lights to make sure that they are functioning, and started to tidy up all the wires. I used a connector for positive and negative and added a piece of plate so that it doesn't get hooked when it moves around in the base. Then I moved on to the Gundam cage, pretty much drilling a hole with 0.8 millimeter pin vise, running the LED through and setting it with the UV resin. So that's why you see there were a few flash of blue light when I was running the LEDs. And then later on, I pretty much run it to the bottom and drill a hole to make sure everything goes through. In between, tested it to make sure lights are still functioning. And the last thing you want is wires breaking and it's not function after everything is done. So once everything's done, tested, it still function, I pretty much solder everything up together at the bottom again and added a plate to make sure that wires don't get hooked while moving around or snag, and because these wires are super fine. And scouring the internet for this for quite a long time and waited 1 month to actually get the stock. This is actually a resin copy from SH Studio for the MS figure, also called figure 01 Gundam builder parts. I have no issue with it from SH figure, since it's so small. If the details was actually not there, I'm perfectly fine with it. I just wanted some human figures in the domain base to look a bit more lively rather than just Gundam sitting inside. So this is me trying to sand everything after cutting up the knobs and everything. So far, no complaints actually relating to this figure. It's pretty much an exact copy from Bandai's one. Again, do I recommend you to buy a knockoff or a copy from China? Not really, but it is really hard to get your hands on the Gundam builder parts MS figure 01. So here I base or I primed it black and do a simple zenithal highlight with white to get the highlights of all the details or the highlights of all these humans. So here you see it is already primed and highlighted in white. And moving on to the next stage, I painted everything with acrylic colors and panel line wash. So you can see all the details from it. It's not lost from this resin at all. I also made a different batch, which is yellow in color, or orange yellow in color, using the same what you call that, orange yellow from Jumpwind. So this one, I'm just pretty much detail painting them using Vallejo's Mecha color line acrylic colors again. So taking my own sweet time painting them, and after painting them, I store them in a small container, just to give you a rough look on how it looks like if you painted them yellow or white. I wasn't sure what would be the right or correct color scheme. Again, Gundam is freedom. This is how small it is. The detail on it is absolutely nice. And to do a size comparison against all the accessories, 1/100 scale is just perfect. Although the system base was actually made for, I believe it's a 1/44 scale, but you wouldn't be able to tell the difference for all of them. So finally, it's coming to the end of the video, and I'm working on the LEDs for the platform or the domain base. Here I'm pretty much drilling in all the LEDs and then fixing them with the UV resin. So after wiring all the LEDs, I connect them to this connectors. So in case I were to disassemble it, I could easily disassemble all of them and actually move them around in case I have a future change of plan. So similarly, I'm doing the same for the other side of the wall, drilling everything in with a 0.8 mm drill bit, and also feeding everything in using the 0603 size SMD micro LED. So these LEDs are all sourced from China. I bought them through a proxy locally here, and just running through all of them and connecting them all together, making sure that they don't get tangled up. Of course, I twisted all of them together so that it looks slightly tidier on the back. So every time when you do all this LED, is always important to test your LEDs before you go with the final soldering, so that you could easily fix or make any changes to it. So one more quick tip, which I only found out at the end of this all this process, was to use soldering paste. So to solder or to connect wires together quickly, you can actually just use soldering paste, and instead of using a hot soldering iron to actually solder to it, you can just use soldering paste with some flame. So this side, you'll see me starting to use those soldering paste itself, and this is me completing all the LEDs. And again, test fitting them to make sure all the LEDs are running fine. So here, this is where what I was talking about, using soldering paste, just quickly burning them to make sure all the wires are everything are connected. So this technique was only found later on, or I was actually experimenting, and turns out it was actually much faster than actually using a soldering iron. So soldering iron, it's perfect, but for me, since a blowtorch was portable and soldering paste was much easier and accurate to melt things onto the place that you want, you just apply on and just heat it with a blowtorch. That's all. And again, I did a preview on how it would look with every kit inside, and roughly see how I would like to make any changes. And of course, I felt a little empty and I want to add more. And since I already bought this reborn LED, I felt I should make use of it. and the only way of being able to run a big LED is through an optic fiber. So this is me testing the optic fiber using on the side, because I know if I were to drill a hole somewhere on the back, no one would really notice. So after testing it, I was happy with the result. I quickly gone to work, and this pretty much took me, I think, 3 hours to drill holes and actually run optic fiber in. And the most troublesome is to actually make sure that the optic fibers are on the right length, and to make sure that the optic fiber doesn't slip out on the other end, I just burn it on the other end, so to burn the tip so it got slightly fatter and it will not fall out of the other side of the cable. So everything's tidy up, and there you go. This is the end of it. The optic fiber, that's a downside to it, because as you know, optic fiber runs lights on a straight line. So if you are viewing it on a certain angle, you may not be able to see it clearly. But overall, if you like this, yeah, why not? You can go ahead with it. So this is how it looks with some of the accessories add on. There are way more accessories that I can put onto this domain base, but like I believe less is more. So this is how I probably would set up the domain base right now. And again, I do not know what I'll add later on, but this is how far I would take it for now. And in future, if I would like, I probably add more domain base on the side. That's all for now, and thank you for watching. If you like my video, please give me a like and subscribe. Of course, any questions are welcome. I'll gladly reply them in the comment itself. Thank you for watching all the way to the end.